Welcome to Serious About Rugby League. Today on the agenda we're going to be discussing the relegation battle and whether Super League will in fact have to change the structure if Leeds were to go down. Now, we see it quite a lot. They're talking about if Leeds go down, we're going to make it a 14-team league to keep them up there because the league wouldn't cope without them. Now, I actually have a different viewpoint on this. I don't care whether people think it should be a 12-team league or a 14-team league. I just think out of actual, for the integrity of the league, I think if Leeds do finish bottom, I think they have to go down, they have to keep it a 12-team league, and they'll just have to survive without them. But I'll come to you first on this, Sean, because I know you have a bit of an opinion on the current structure and whether it should be a 12 or 14-team league.
I think realistically what I want anyway in the long term is a 16-team league. I think we've got the resources, we've got enough pro teams to make a 16-team league. I think this season maybe it was necessity to bring relegation back. If you'd have asked me 12 months ago, I'd have gone, yeah, probably. But this was the assumption that Toronto were going to come up and were going to cause a problem where there was going to be real competition. However, how it's panned out is London have come up. London are an integral part of a domestic rugby league moving forward in this country, in my opinion. A strong London team will mean strong advertising for the sport, and that can only mean positivity all the way from south up to the north. And I don't see the enjoyment of losing London, or they're a nothing club, or they're a nothing. Like, a lot of rugby league fans talk about how this club's a nothing club or that club's a nothing club, and it's like, well, but you've got to see the financial investment in certain areas, and London are definitely one of those areas. And I think there should be a 16-team league. Whether it's licensed or not is completely up to you. If you want to leave the championship open for development and allow relegation promotion, then that's fine. In a 16-team league, you're more likely to get different people going up and down than you are in a 12-division league. But so I don't really have an opinion on the relegation situation, but I do think the teams need to go up. I feel like there should have been an announcement earlier about this. I feel like if London were when London were rock bottom for when they were about 4 points down, and everyone was just assuming that that's London done, that would have been the time to announce let's go to 14 teams, because nobody would have made an issue of London being saved, because London are needed. They're a vital part of this promotion forward. And now that Leeds are in it,
yeah,
if you announce it now, it's going to be we're saving Leeds.
Yeah, of course.
It looks bad for the sport. So if Leeds go down, they've got to go down. They've just got to accept it. If London go down, I think we need to save London. That's my opinion.
Would you agree with that, Paul? Because I think Sean touched on it there, that the competitive nature of London in the league this year perhaps shows that this would be a good time to do it, because the gap is closing between Super League and the Championship. So do we need to make the league bigger, or...?
Yes, we do. I think. I mean, we're talking about expansion now. We've got Toronto coming in. Just Toulouse who are starting to really pick up.
Potentially Ottawa.
Yeah, and we've got the teams from more teams from across the Atlantic. It could be left with 8 English teams left in Super League in one season, which obviously is crazy. I think when they talked about this 14 teams about 4 or 5 years ago, I think that they were talking about was the quality there to have 14. There's enough players around for 14 teams, and I think that they were unsure about that, but there certainly is now. And I agree with Sean. I would with the expansion, I would go to 16. I think as they do in the NRL, the teams don't have to play each other twice. You could play. Everyone has to play each other, and then there'd be 15 games. There'd be another 12 games. We'd sort out with a Magic weekend, and then you'd probably play your rivals, something on them lines. The problem, I think, is obviously the Sky money. I think they probably wanted to go to 14 teams last year, didn't they? But I think they were told that the clubs would have to share what they get between 12 teams. They'd have to share that between 14. They weren't going to get any more money. So you're looking at 12% less revenue that they're getting from the TV. I think that's cynically, that was probably the stumbling block. Probably still is. What I would do, and again I totally agree with Sean, they should have done this weeks ago, but when it wouldn't have sounded quite so cynical, I would have probably said even go to 13 teams next year if necessary, and then 14 the season after, which would have given London in particular 3 years to get their house is in order, but to get their squad sorted, to be ultra competitive in the league. They would know they could develop, go to a good ground with a decent facilities, a good following. They would know they would have that. They'd have 3 solid years in Super League without any threat of relegation. In fact, all teams would. You can still have teams promoted from the Championship because you're going from 12 to 14, ultimately 16. I mean, you're looking at quite a few years when there's no need. But again, I agree completely with yourself. If Leeds finish bottom and they announce in November that Leeds that there is no relegation, I think everyone's going to think, oh well, all they're doing now is saving Leeds. I think we could have done this weeks. This could have been done weeks ago when it all looked like Leeds were going to be safe, and there wouldn't have been a problem. Like I said, if anyone would really have a problem with saving London, it's totally necessary to have a team in London, from London in Super League. It shouldn't be necessary, I've said before, but it is. That our media, our national media, is based in the capital, and if you've got St Helens playing in London, you could get the sports editors of all the papers to go and watch and just see just what a tremendous side St Helens or even Warrington are to watch. A great atmosphere, a few thousand fans coming from the northwest. It's massive for the sport, and it's no coincidence over the last few years when outside of the rugby league area in England, people just aren't watching this. They don't seem to be following the sport anymore. I don't think there's any coincidence there that's been at a time when London weren't in Super League. That can't be a coincidence. We need London in Super League as a sport. We need Leeds as well for financial reasons. Any Sky deal that didn't involve Leeds, Wigan would fit the same boat. St Helens, Warrington would be less than a Sky deal that includes them. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I think they should be saved per se. But I think there was an opportunity a few years ago, cynically, for Super League to save them without actually making it seem so obvious.
Well, I think it was actually mentioned in the papers that they're talking about extending the Championship. Now they're searching for a broadcast deal now because they've split away from Super League, and they're trying to get the big teams in League One. They're trying to get them into the Championship to give the Championship a better chance of getting a broadcast deal. Now, to me, that just proves that there's teams in League One that can mean the Championship can survive if the big teams from the Championship go to Super League. I think we've got enough teams there, and fair enough, League One might be affected, but in essence, that's a bit of an expansion division anyway, isn't it? So
Paul touched on it. The big thing that everybody's been complaining about for a number of years is the player pool. The player pool is there. I'm sorry, if you don't agree, then you're wrong. The player pool's there. There's enough players playing professional rugby league, and there's enough players playing semi-pro rugby league that are good enough to play professional rugby league. The only problem is the financial aspect. But you're only going to develop financial stability and capability if you have teams in major areas like Newcastle, like London. These are the teams that need to be promoted, like York, for example. York is a city that's famous for really backing its team, York City FC. And now the York City Knights have really clamped onto that, obviously going to Booth and Crescent, playing alongside the football team. And that spirit is sort of building. You can see the development from York in just a space of 3 years' time. That can happen up and down the country if we're going to give the teams the opportunity to. There's enough teams to make a 16-team Super League team competitions competitive. You've got Toronto, Toulouse, Featherstone, Leigh, Widnes, York, all deserve at least a shot at getting into the Super League. So the Championship's already highly competitive. If you throw teams like Newcastle in there, who have so much potential for expansion within the city, because we know the city enjoys its rugby league after the Magic Weekend successes we've had there, then I don't see why you can't expand the Super League at least to 14 teams, and then the Championship to at least 14 teams, and get these 7 or 8 full-time teams in the Championship. Not even mention Bradford, who are obviously one of the most famous teams in the competition, and have a competitive Championship alongside a competitive Super League. It seems ridiculous that we're forcing ourselves to go on this 12-team barrier because we've known and loved it for so long, and we can't move from that 12-team barrier now. It's ridiculous. We need to move forward and realise that the only way we're going to make money and develop as a sport is to allow these big cities to have their way.
Yeah, 12's not enough. If you're expanding the game, we need to expand the Super League. 12 just isn't enough. I mean, you've got 4 teams from outside of the rugby league, the M62 corridor, so to speak. you get that's that's 4 teams that come into your stadium without any fans, so that we know away fans for a third of your home games could be without any fans. I've got no problem with that, but that they come in, but there has to be more than that. We've got to open this up, and it would be, I think, it'd be quite ironic really this year. We get Toronto into Super League as an expansion team, and we lose Leeds, who everyone, they love-hate with the fans that Leeds are, but I mean, it would be a disaster for take Manchester United out of the Premier League, it would be a disaster. Take Leeds out of Super League, that would be a disaster for the competition, and for marketing wise, I mean, it's our biggest catchment area. Not to have that club in, I mean, it's unthinkable that club wouldn't be in Super League, but like I say, we've said, I do think integrity wise, if they finish bottom, I suppose they would have to go.
Yeah, well, it's an intriguing debate. How many teams do you guys think there should be in Super League? What's the best outcome this season for the game? And in terms of the overall sport in this country, what should we do? Like, is it time that we looked at the bigger picture and, like Sean said, start making sure that we got all the biggest cities playing the sport and getting them into Super League, getting a better championship? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Make sure to like, subscribe and hit the notification bell.